Howdy. This is the Views from the Shot podcast. I'm your host, your tonight. It is Friday, January 3rd, 2025. And I wish you a very, very, very happy fruitcake toss day. Today's show is, of course, as always, exclusively presented by College Basketball Analytics. Go to cbbanalytics.com right now. Do it. Check it out. If you don't have an account already, you can sign up for one for free. Or, of course, you can sign up for a paid account, get access to all the stats available on that website, including stats that several Division One college basketball programs use to scout, self-scout, and game plan and more. Use the code SHOT, that's SCHOTT, SHOT, to get an entire month free. Well, the Buckeyes have taken another loss. It's a season in which Ohio State, to this point, has taken a step forward and then taken back. And on today's show, we will cover the loss that the Buckeyes suffer at home in the Shot on a Friday night game. A lot of people there, but unable to get it done against Michigan State in this one. We've got key stats and performers. We're going to talk about all the things that went wrong. I've got, 5 points here on things that went wrong alone? Maybe six, but I can't get the other, my second page out here. They're sticking together. So I guess we're just going to stick with at least five in this one. And then we're going to talk about some instant reactions and takeaways before we figure out once and for all who is the 2024-25 Ohio State University men's basketball team. What is this team? What should we expect moving forward? Now, I came on this show, the very last show that we had that was only on Spotify or your podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, all that. And I said, look, I don't know who this team is. At this point, I've kind of come to a conclusion. I think I know what this team is. The only question is, what's Ohio State going to do about it? So we'll talk about that to close off the show. If you're new here, please subscribe. If you're watching live on YouTube, thanks for being here. Hit subscribe. If you haven't done it yet, please do it. It's free. Nothing happens other than that it kind of helps out the show, which is great, of course. But it means that videos from the Views from the Shop podcast, which means we preview and recap every single game Ohio State plays, those videos will be there for you on YouTube should you choose to watch them. So please do hit subscribe. Yes, I'm talking to you. If you hear this voice, subscribe. And of course, follow on X, follow on Instagram, follow on Facebook, and make sure you are following on every podcast platform you use as well. One more note before we get into it. You can enter yourself into a drawing to win one of two $25 Raising Cane's gift cards. All you have to do is give a 5-star review on Spotify for the Shop podcast. Why? Well, DM me a screenshot of the 5-star review on Spotify. If you don't know why I'm asking you to, DM that to me. I'll enter you into the drawing. This is your final chance. It's the final show before I DM two lucky people to get their gift card. If you're curious as to why I'm asking you to do that, ask me when you DM your screenshot as well. All right. So the Buckeyes fall in this one 69-62 to the number 18 team in the nation, according to the AP poll. Let's get into some key stats and performers in this one before we get into the real good stuff. So Buckeyes lose this game by 7. At halftime, it felt like Ohio State was lucky to be down by any less than 10. They didn't look good. They didn't look fluid. And this, again, is an offense that looks kind of similar to what we saw under Chris Holtmann. Why is that? Well, you hire someone on the exact same staff as Chris Holtmann, which is Jake Diebler, and guess what? The offensive mind, well, Diebler was a de facto offensive coordinator for Ohio State when he was with the Buckeyes with Chris Holtmann. So that offense not really looking all that different. At time, it looked like they were playing in the mud. It looked like they were playing in rain boots. However you want to describe it, that's what it looked like for Ohio State basketball offensively. Not a lot of movement, not a lot of motion, a lot of dribbling, and a lot of taking shots. I don't know, with 5 seconds left in the shot clock because you dribbled around for the first 15 seconds, couldn't really get anything going. And then Quez Glover, who I don't know what's he listed at? We can find that pretty quickly here, courtesy of our friends at College Basketball Analytics. Quez Glover looks like he's maybe 6 feet tall. and he is listed at 6 foot exactly. I doubt that. You and I may be taller than Wes Glover, depending on your height. I'm not, but it feels like it's close. So when you've got a guy like that who's just throwing up a shot with 2 seconds left on the shot clock, maybe not the best game plan. The Buckeyes didn't look great in this one. Your leading scorer had 13 points. Hard to win a game when your leading scorer scores 13 points. It was Micah Parrish. A lot of those points coming late. He goes 5 of 9 from the field. Talk about how he's hitting clutch shots for sure. At the same time, he suffered 3 turnovers. Turnovers were an issue for Ohio State as well as Michigan State in this one. But Micah Parrish, he hit some clutch shots late for Ohio State, 5 straight points down the stretch for the Buckeyes where they needed to get back into the game. But unfortunately, no one could step up when they needed shots to be made. Parrish lead score for the Buckeyes. Bruce Thornton had 10 points, the worst 10-point performance of his life. He would probably tell you that as well. 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 of 9 shooting. Not an efficient day for Bruce Thornton. He was 0 of 5 from the three-point line, and he had 5 turnovers. Really crucial, just ugly, bad turnover late in this game as well, where he's dribbling the ball kind of around the right elbow toward the right wing, and the ball just gets scooped right out of his hands. He completely loses it, and Michigan State gets the ball, and well, it doesn't really go well from there. Buckeyes lose the ball on a really, really tough possession and Bruce Thornton just did not have a good game throughout this. Now, I was hoping at some point maybe you're going to see Ohio State, Jake Diebler try to get Bruce Thornton some deliberate looks, some open looks. Didn't really happen in that one. Bruce Thornton was ice cold in this one. He did not help Ohio State. Devin Royal, another player we need to talk about here. 8 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 of 6 from the field. Is this the Devin Royal we're going to get in the Big Ten? We know what kind of basketball Big Ten basketball is. It's traditional centers, traditional post up type of players, and Devin Royal has been really good when you can space. He's really good in the paint. He's really good at the post. But against a team like Michigan State, where you have really, really good paint players, and we talked about this at length in the preview episode for this game, when you face a team that's really good at defending the rim and defending the paint, it's going to make it hard for Devin Royal to score. He was not great in this one. He didn't get a lot of opportunities to score. 2 of 6. I think he was 0 of 1 from 3 as well. So not a great game from him. It was not a great game for anyone. Don Mobley Jr. scored 8 points. Super inefficient. 3 of 12 shooting. He starts for the Buckeyes again in this one. He's only 2 of 7 from 3. So you go down the list of the 5 players who started for Ohio State, and you're searching for, well, who played well in this game? And it was no one. You could go to the bench and look at Aaron Bradshaw, who was, I believe, 0 of 3 from the three-point line. I can find that quickly. I'm just going to say that he was 0 of 3. You didn't get anything out of Evan Mahaffey in this one. You didn't get anything from really anyone else coming off the bench other than Quez Glover, who had 9 points, but 3 of 9 from the field. 2 of 5 from 3, but 3 of 9 from the field. So not all that efficient either. The Quez Glover, he's starting to turn it on a little bit. He's still the exact same player that he was at Samford. He's a pull-up guy. He can make shots inside the three-point line, short corner. He can pull up and make shots stepping in from the wing. That's the type of player that he is, and that is carried over. So that's a good thing for Ohio State is that you have a player who has kind of picked up where he's left off. And you keep him healthy. We'll see. But overall, you hear those stats, none of them overwhelmingly good for Ohio State. So the question is, what went wrong? And I have exactly 6. Wow. 6 different points here. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I've got a bunch of papers here. 6 different points for what went wrong in this one. And I would assume if you clean up 1 to 2 of these points, maybe you win this game. It was pretty simple in this one for Ohio State, which is what makes it so frustrating. So the first thing we'll talk about here, again, thanks for watching. If you're here live, please do subscribe. I mean it, you subscribe. If you're listening on podcast, I'm trust you subscribed already. So what went wrong in this one? Aaron Bradshaw. I don't know if I'm the first to say it. I may be the last to say it. Probably somewhere in between. We got to stop giving him the green light to shoot three-pointers. I get it. If you're open, you take them. But Aaron Bradshaw is about as effective as Evan Mahaffey from behind the three-point line. Really, really bad. He was 0-3 in this one. At one point, we're in the second half. This isn't like 8 minutes into the first half where you have some variance, some guys not getting their shots up or anything like that. This is well into the second half. Aaron Bradshaw shot one more triple than John Mobley Jr. He had the same amount of three-pointers attempted as Micah Parrish, and this is a player who is 3 of 14 from behind the three-point line coming into this game. Now 0 of 3 in this game, so you can push that number to 3 of 17. Just as effective as an Evan Mahaffey, barely more effective than Sean Stewart, but Sean Stewart has shot, I think, one three-pointer this entire year. I mean, you do not want Aaron Bradshaw taking as many three-pointers as Bruce Thornton or John Mobley Jr. or Micah Parrish or anyone else on this team, really, at this point. He's cold. He's not proved that he can hit three-pointers, and yet for some reason he continues to get, maybe if it's not a green light, it's like a yellow light at this point. Aaron Bradshaw should not be taking as many three-pointers as any guard on this team when you are 10 minutes into the second half. That's unacceptable. Ohio State's got to find a better way to get their true shot makers involved and get them some shots. That is one major thing that went wrong in this game, and we can continue to pick out more. Scoring off of turnovers. So you look at this game and you look at the fact that Ohio State was stealing and stealing and stealing from Michigan State. They forced 16 turnovers in this game. And for good measure, Michigan State also forced 16 turnovers in this game. Now, granted, these numbers not finalized, not public on NCAA.com or anything like that. So some of these numbers will get cleaned up a little bit, but they're not going to change all that much. 16 turnovers by both teams. Michigan State outscored Ohio State on points off of turnovers 18-16. When Ohio State has forced turnovers this season, they've had absolutely no rhythm. They've had absolutely no flow when pushing the ball or even acting like they are going to go run in the fast break. Because head coach Jake Dietler came on this very show. You can watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it on podcast. Go back and listen or watch if you didn't get to see that. He came on this show and he said, look, I'm not interested in being guarded in the half court against, he might have specifically mentioned Tom Izzo at Michigan State. I think he might have. I could go back and check. I'm not going to right now, obviously, because we're here talking about this game. But he said, I'm not interested in being defended in the half court by Big Ten defenses because they're really good. He said they're going to push the ball. Guess what hasn't happened all year? They haven't pushed the ball. You force 16 turnovers and you score 18 points. That is never, ever, ever going to get the job done, especially against a team like Michigan State. The Buckeyes did not get the job done. They forced the turnovers. They could not score off of those turnovers. And again, they just look awkward. They look uncomfortable. Anytime the ball happens to bounce in their favor and they force a turnover, they're doing absolutely nothing with it. I don't know how else to say this. Point number 3 in terms of things that went wrong for Ohio State in this one. It looks like an NBA offense. And hand up, I'll admit it right now. I'm an NBA casual, okay? I don't care about the NBA. I don't watch the NBA regularly, but of the NBA that I do watch, here's what I know. It's not like college basketball. You're probably not calling a lot of floppy or longhorn action or whatever you can think of. Not a lot of motion. You've got more ISO. You've got more guys just getting back down because they're thick and strong and all of that. Ohio State, again, not only do they lack screens, I cannot. I'm going to have to rip apart this team, I think, at some point because I think this just needs to be talked about. Even in this one, Bradshaw, you're 7 feet tall. I get that you're 110 to 120 pounds soaking wet, Aaron Bradshaw. Set a freaking screen, man. Like, if you're going to go out to the three-point line and act like you're going to set a screen, put your hands over the magic marbles, make sure your feet are about hip width, and go ahead, hit somebody. Let someone run into you. The screens that Ohio State have set this year constantly have absolutely no urgency. They have absolutely no purpose, and they do nothing to help this offense. That's one way I say this looks like an NBA offense. There's no urgency. You see times where they walk the ball up the floor. you will constantly see some kind of a pin down motion. You'll see wings with a floppy motion where they go from one wing and they go down to the paint and they curl around to the other side of the 3-point line. And there's nothing there ever. It doesn't do anything. And then it's okay, ball screen. There's 12 seconds on the shot clock, and we get nothing out of it. No urgency, no screens, nothing there. And there's no off ball motion in general when it comes to Ohio State basketball offensively. Again, when you hire Jake Diebler as your head coach, who was your offensive coordinator under Chris Holtman, you're not going to probably see a lot of differences. The differences I was hoping to see this year for Ohio State was pretty simple. Jake Diebler said he was going to push the ball. I took his word for it. Last year, Ohio State's pace was actually lower. It was slower in games under Jake Diebler than Chris Holtman. I said, small sample size, no big deal. Well, it hasn't changed. Speaking of pace, 69 was the number in this game. I did that math myself. Bit of a formula there, so I could be wrong, but I did use the help of ChatGPT. So there is that. 69 is the number I got. I think Ohio State's average pace this year has been like 68.6 or something like that. Let me find that very briefly here. Again, courtesy of College Basketball Analytics, 68.4. So pretty much, I don't know, the exact same pace that they've played with all year. And again, Jake Diebler said against Big Ten teams, he's going to push the ball. That that's not what we've seen from Ohio State this year. Again, he mentioned it on this very show, and we haven't seen it. So until that happens, Ohio State is going to struggle to score, I think, because I just don't think that it's one or the other. Either you push the ball with pace and you go score in the fast break and you score in transition and you push a defense onto its heels, or you do the opposite. You break it down in the half court, but you look like freaking UConn or Purdue or Marquette, another great team to watch, maybe a little Bama in there. There are some offenses you watch that just screen and move and cut, and they're constantly active. That's not the Ohio State offense. If you're not doing either, you're going to score 62 points in a game and you're going to lose. Paint scoring. I need a sip of water. I did have some pizza for dinner tonight, so the sodium there is making me a bit parched. Paint scoring. This was the matchup I told you to watch. I told you to watch this coming into the game. And what happened? Let me just set this up for you in case you didn't watch the or listen to the preview episode. So Ohio State coming into this game, they shot 71% at the rim this season and 53% in the paint this season. Both of those numbers are absolutely spectacular. 71% at the rim and 53% in the paint. Michigan State, on the contrary, defensively, they have allowed only 57% of shots at the rim to go in. 57%. Nearly half of the shots going up at the rim, these are usually layups or dunks, missed. And in the paint, 40% of shots in the paint go in. That's a huge contrast in numbers. Now, because I'm recording this so quickly after the game, let me refresh really quickly here to see if College Basketball Analytics has at least the field goal numbers in this one, the shooting chart. It looks like it does not. Let me check to see. Even if not, yeah, it does not have it yet. I don't think, yeah, it doesn't have it yet. But here's the number for you. 18 paint points in this game scored by Ohio State. You know what that number is for the Buckeyes this year? That would be a season low in paint scoring for Ohio State. A team that has averaged 45-ish points per game in the paint. You're going to see on YouTube at some point this is going to come up on that rolling bottom banner. I think it says 22 points, second lowest. That's actually how many points in the paint Michigan State had. That's a mistyping there. Typo, my bad. Ohio State, season low in points in the paint in this one, 18 points. I told you coming into this game, I don't want to be the guy who says I told you so. I said watch a matchup. Who's going to win the matchup between Ohio State paint scoring against Michigan State paint defense? And guess what? Michigan State dominated Ohio State, holding Ohio State to its least amount of points scored in the paint this season. So, I mean, we could close off the show there. Free throw shooting, I forget Michigan State going to the line 22 times. It is what it is. I don't really care. plenty of those came late in the game when Ohio State needed to foul, and Ohio State still shot, I think, 16 free throws in this one. Yeah, 16 free throws. So it's a difference of 6, which is a little bit of a gap, but not a huge difference. Here's the real difference, though. Ohio State was bad yet again shooting free throws. They were 69% in this one, 11 of 16. Coming to the game, shooting 69.5%, so that's pretty much where they've been all year. When Sean Stewart, Evan Mahaffey, Aaron Bradshaw, Devin Royal, when they go to the free throw line and it's a one and one, man, you're sweating on that first shot because you hope they make it. Because if they make that first shot, you know they're not making the second. We saw that tonight happen multiple times. Aaron Bradshaw from the free throw line in this one, he was 2 of 2. Outside of that, you had a 4-6 out of Devin Royal. That's fine. It's still below 70%. John Stewart didn't get to the line. John Noble Jr. did not get to the line. Michael Parrish did not get to the line. Bruce Thornton, 4 of 6. That's below his season average as well. And Quez Glover was 1 of 2. Nobody shooting, not a single player in this game, shot above 70% from the free throw line other than Aaron Bradshaw, who took 2 free throws in this one. You can complain about fouls, you can complain about the calls. Doesn't really matter. I think it was called fine either way. It's a Big Ten. That's just how it goes. Typically, you can't keep making 70 or less than 70% of free throws and expecting to win games. If you make a couple more, guess what? That at least gives you a shot. Stop fouling so much and maybe have a shot to make something at the end of the game to force overtime or win the game and hit a buzzer beater. This team is not a good free throw shooting team, and it's really, really hurting Ohio State. So that's what 6, 7 major takeaways in terms of what went wrong in this game. That's why I think Ohio State lost. If you just clean up a couple of those, especially a home game, a Friday night, where there seem to be a lot of fans there, maybe you win the game. All right, let's get into some more instant reactions and takeaways here. Again, I appreciate you being here. If you're watching right now and you're new and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm begging you. I'm not begging you. It's not that big of a deal to me, but I would appreciate it if you subscribe. And if you're listening on podcast, make sure you're subscribed there as well. I really do appreciate you being here. And if you're watching live, man, it's 11:30 on a Friday night. Shout out to you for being a trooper and loving Ohio State basketball. So, you know who doesn't love Ohio State basketball? Let's get into this. Gus Johnson, what are we doing? Like, Ohio State isn't losing by 30 to Auburn, okay? This was a real game that Ohio State was in for 40 minutes, and Gus Johnson could not help himself but talk about Ohio State football and the Rose Bowl, and then stupid questions and going back to, what are we going to call the Big Ten now that it has 18 teams? Hey, Jimmy Jackson, appreciate your service at Ohio State. Shut up and talk about the basketball game. Gus, look, I know you love to do your ha and talk football and say sacked and all that crap. Buddy, it's basketball season. Move on. We're going to move on. Instant reactions, takeaways in this one. I got a couple for you. How you wish you had a player like Johnson Jr. I don't know what's going on with him. I have asked a couple questions recently as to what's going on with him. I have not gotten any answers. It's very similar to the Aaron Bradshaw situation where they just want to keep it quiet. And look, I'm not ever probably going to be your number one source for Ohio State basketball insider news and all those types of things. That's probably going to be Adam Jardy. He's pretty good at what he does. I'll raise my hand and say, hey, believe it or not, not the number one source of breaking news for Ohio State basketball. I haven't heard anything about Meetsy Johnson. Buckeyes are keeping it private. I don't know if there's any good, bad, ugly going on there, but we'll see. I guess we'll see. But this is a game where you wish you had Meetsy Johnson Jr. You wish you had a guy who could knife into the paint and score because the traditional paint scoring wasn't working. Bruce Thornton was ice cold. Micah Parrish, not really much of a slasher. He shows some promise there at times, especially the first game of the year. We loved what we saw from him against Texas, but overall, he's much more of a jump shooter. He's much more of a pull-up shooter, and because of that, you need some guy who can knife in the paint when John Mobley Jr. isn't that type of player, and Bruce Thornton is ice cold. So how much you wish you had Meechie Johnson Jr. in this one? Maybe if you get him, you win this game. Now I get it. There's a lot of fans who are not happy with Meechie Johnson Jr. and his play this year. I've been vocal on this show saying, hey, he's going to be up and down, and you know what? He hasn't been good enough for Ohio State this year. This guy who was just last year SEC, all SEC team, second team down there in South Carolina. So You would have liked to have him in this one, and that's what I was thinking about multiple times in this one where Ohio State couldn't get anything going. If you can't get anything going and you're not going to put a bunch of screens and really do anything in that regard, hey, let's let a guy go ISO. Johnson could be that guy. Hey, guarding traditional Big Ten teams, if this is what we're going to do at Ohio State, if you are going to play these Big Ten teams and you're going to play them slow, you're going to struggle. Ohio State couldn't score in the paint against a really, really good paint defense in Michigan State. This is what happened when they played Auburn. This is what happened when they played Texas A&M. This is what happened when they played Maryland. Traditional Big Ten types of teams, even if they're not in the Big Ten, that play through or play with a bunch of very good big men, or at least one very good traditional big man. And guess what? You struggled a lot. That's what happened again against Michigan State. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. Last thought here, I would say, you know what? Screw it. Let's get into this. Who is this team? That's the question that I have as we close out this show. I think I have an opinion on this. You are going to continue to lose to teams like Michigan State, Texas A&M, Auburn, and Maryland. You are going to lose those games if you do not make any adjustments, Big Taylor. He has said before after our conversation, and as we've had the opportunity. I don't talk to him every day. I'm not going to act like I talk to him every week. But he said before, "Hey, I'd love to be back on the show. Let's make it happen." All that. I would love to have him back. My first question to him is going to be, Jake, you told me you guys were going to run up and down the floor more this year. You haven't. So you have two options if you're Ohio State at this point in the year. This team cannot beat teams that have really, really good front courts. Aaron Bradshaw is not a traditional center. Sean Stewart could be a traditional center, but he hasn't really shown the touch, has he? He had 4 points in this game. He had Let's just take a minute here, okay? He had 4 points in this game. He made 2 field goals, one of which was a fast break breakaway dunk, and we have people on X saying this is a Sean Stewart breakout game. This is the world we live in with a former McDonald's All-American player in high school, and Duke said, you can go elsewhere. That's fine. We can replace you. And you hope that you would get more out of him at Ohio State. There's still plenty of time to get more out of him. But all that to say, Aaron Bradshaw, not a traditional center. Sean Stewart, not a traditional center. He doesn't have that touch down there. He's not the Zed Key type. Devin Royal, definitely not a traditional center. And Evan Hafey, definitely not a traditional center. Austin Parks is kind of a traditional center, but due to the new identity, I guess, of this team, he's been asked to be more of a stretch five. Ivan Nigavan, absolutely not ready to play Division One college basketball. Very, very clear from what we've seen so far this season, just rotationally, not a traditional center that you can throw out there as well. So if that's the case, you have two options. Number one, you can run. You can actually have a pace that's like 75th percentile or better in college basketball. You can push a ball at the floor. You can tell Bruce Gordon, hey, go be aggressive and get to the rim. You're crafty, you're a little slippery, but most of all, you're a boxy young man. You've got some good girth to you, and you can finish at the rim. Go get there. Draw fouls. And you know what? If you get some shots blocked, we will adjust. But go get there. John Mobley Jr., you've got some pretty good speed on you. The straight line speed is there. We want you to shoot threes, but we'd also like you to get into the paint. Sean Stewart, you're the best freaking athlete on the floor at any given time. You broke Zion Williamson's record at Duke for standing vertical. Guess what? Go run up and down the floor. Run the floor, Sean Stewart, and get ready to catch a ball in transition, take one dribble, Euro step, and slam dunk a ball with two hands through the rim because that's the type of player that you are. Aaron Bradshaw, guess what? You run kind of weird. You keep your hands really, really close to your chest. You keep your elbows nice and bent and tight. Doesn't look that natural. Don't care. Go run the floor. That is the type of team that Jake Diebler has built. He has not utilized his roster in the way that it should. So that's your first option is go run. Your second option is pretty simple. Keep losing. These shows can be pretty simple at this point. Did Ohio State run or did it not? If the Buckeyes decide not to run up and down the floor in January and in February, then guess what? My belief, who is this team? In March, it will not be fighting for a spot on the bubble. It will not be fighting for an NCAA tournament seeding. It will not be wondering, will we be a 7, will we be a 6, an 8, a 9, a 10? No. It will be wondering if it's gonna host a game in the NIT tournament. That's about it at this point. And it's disappointing because there was a lot of hype coming into the season. This roster definitely is good enough to be an NCAA tournament team because of the Buckeyes' win over Kentucky and then another win over Indiana State. Bracketologists believing in Ohio State more and saying, hey, this team actually could maybe be an NCAA tournament team being thrown in as an 8, a 9, a 10 seed. That's going to die quickly because the schedule that Ohio State has coming up next is a gauntlet. And if they can't win against those teams, cool. You beat Northwestern, you beat UCLA in late February. That's nice. You're not getting back in the bubble, just like last season. Buckeyes will play Minnesota, and they've got Oregon, they've got Purdue, they've got Wisconsin coming up. Wisconsin just put up over 100 points on whoever they played. I think Iowa tonight. I don't know where the wins come from. So those are your 2 options. That's what I believe this team is. If Ohio State decides that it's content not running, not pushing the pace, it's going to continue to lose games against teams that have really, really good front courts because they're just not good enough in the half court. That's what I believe about this team. Hopefully, I'm wrong. I think we have enough data at this point to make that decision. And by the way, this is coming from a guy who started the last show, the Michigan State preview episode, saying, "I don't know anything about this team. I had a good read on them last year. I had a good read on them 2 years ago. My papers just fell off my desk. This year, I don't have a good read on them. Maybe I do now. Maybe I'm overconfident. We will see." So, Buckeyes take a tough loss. It's a tough way to start the weekend. If you are an Ohio State football fan, look at this. This is an Ohio State basketball podcast, and we made it. I don't know how far we are, like 30-ish minutes into the show. This is the first time me personally I've mentioned Ohio State football. Imagine that, Gus Johnson. Could never be him. But hopefully you're still riding a high after a nice Rose Bowl win. Guess what? We're not talking Ohio State football here. If you're new, it's Ohio State basketball. It's Ohio State basketball exclusive all year round. The only podcast publishing at least one show per week on average and covering every single game, preview and recap mode throughout the regular season and postseason, I guess, as well. So we will be back. Expect a show on Sunday. We will get ready for Ohio State's matchup at Minnesota. That's been a tough place for the Buckeyes to win over the past several years. We will preview that show, and then we'll be back either on Monday night or Tuesday morning to recap that game. I do really appreciate you watching live. If you're listening on podcast as well, hello, thanks for being here. Again, my last warning, you can win a $25 gift card to Raising Cane's. I'm giving away 2. All you have to do is give a 5-star review on Spotify to the Views from the Shop podcast. Screenshot that, DM it to me at the Shop Pod on X. I'll enter you into the drawing. This is your final warning. I'm going to pick out some winners probably tomorrow morning is when that's going to happen. I might wait until Sunday because we'll have probably some stragglers listening to the show. So do that and make sure you're subscribed if you're watching on YouTube now. All righty. It was lively today, not just from me, but from the chat. I see all the comments. I see what you all say, and you are free to say whatever you would like. If I agree or disagree or otherwise. Appreciate you being here and being active if you've been in the comments. Throw a real comment down as well on YouTube. A real comment that's like actually will be seen and not in the live chat. Put something down there. I'm sure it helps with the algorithm. Okay. It is time for me to be quiet again. I appreciate you listening to today's show or watching it live more than you would ever understand. I'm going to shut up before you shut me off. Go